Well, this felt like the first big heavyweight clash of the knockout rounds. France and Belgium, which ended in France winning 1-0. Experienced defender Jan Vertonghen scoring an own goal late in the game to give France the win, and into the next round where they will go on to play Portugal, which would be another big heavyweight clash. And was it pretty? No, but France got the job done. And I do feel like people are a bit harsh in their assessment of France, in the sense of, when you listen to people speak, they speak about this France team being poor. I don't think they're poor. I think they are by far the best defensive team in this entire competition. They're really struggling in the attack, and the fact they haven't scored an open play goal throughout this tournament so far is a worry, and that's something I think they should be absolutely concerned about. But they're creating chances, and you think with the quality of players they have in that front line, eventually those will result in goals, and those will result in hammerings. If they weren't creating chances, I'd be a bit worried, but as I say, in the foundations of them, in the defensive sense, they're the best team in the entire tournament. Fantastic centre-back pairing and performances to go along with it from Saliba and Upamecano. Koundé's been brilliant at right-back, and I've never really been his absolute biggest fan, but I have to say his performances have been top draw, and Tchouaméni, Kanté and Rabiot is while not exciting, is a really, really efficient midfield pairing. And I have to say, the tactics employed by Domenico Tedesco in this game were strange, were very strange. And we're going to cover them in the attacking basis on the second half of this video. But I thought it was baffling, the approach he went with. I couldn't quite believe what I was watching. It felt like an unnecessary change that really didn't get the best out of Belgium's qualities and really made it a lot easier for France in their defensive shape. But France through and into the next round. Now we're going to go over as to how they did that in the attacking sense. So France's shape, as they got into their attacking phase, did differ from this slightly, and the main way it differed is you'd see Tchouaméni coming in a lot deeper, spreading Saliba and Upamecano wide, and as a result, Koundé and Theo Hernandez pushed on a lot further as more wing-backs, and as a result, in their attacking shape, it mainly became a 3-4-3. With Griezmann and Mbappe operating in these central half spaces, with Thuram as the striker. And Belgium didn't press. They weren't interested in pressing. They were sat deep in their 4-4-2, leaving very little space in between the lines. Openda and Lukaku would be more focused on trying to block the passing lanes into Rabiot and Kanté in the centre of the midfield. Those two were quite mobile with the way they took up positions. They'd stagger, they'd go into a bit of a diamond to receive the ball and try and transfer it on, or they'd really drop into these positions to create overloads within that central area alongside Griezmann and Mbappe. So France would try and attack through the width and exploit Belgium's shape that way, because in a 4-4-2 you're generally a lot more narrow. So it would be about getting into the wide areas, let's say Koundé in this position, you'd have Griezmann showing for it here, Kanté coming over as well into this, maybe dropping it deeper in here to look to receive it on the pullback, or coming in here to allow Griezmann to make that movement in beyond the defensive line. And as a result, you'd see Belgium adapting by having maybe Tete coming up to mark Koundé. You'd have Doku in support here by trying to come over and cover Kanté. You'd have De Bruyne watching the space in between the lines, which was a very reserved role for De Bruyne. Usually he's up with Lukaku in the 4-4-2. It felt strange having De Bruyne in the central area in a more defensive role. Not that he's not capable of doing it, he is, but it just felt like a weird use of his qualities when it would have made more sense to have a level of reserved against France with your team selection. But he didn't put a foot wrong, De Bruyne. It just didn't feel like a great use of his abilities. And as a result, when they'd get these players back, they'd turn into a bit of a 5-back with the protection of Doku, and Nana would come in more central as well. As a result, there was a lot of times where Koundé was forced to go back. And a main reason why this was still a threat for France was because they could get the ball to Tchouaméni, who would come in a little bit shorter as well to allow maybe Upamecano to push in a little bit further back, or they'd get the ball to Upamecano and could play it to Tchouaméni in space. And his midfield distribution was fantastic in terms of getting it from side to side quickly to allow them to attack the other flank and try and win the numbers battle on that side as quick as possible. So getting the ball to Theo Hernandez here, you'd have Mbappe in support in this half space, looking to stretch that Belgian defence and looking for the ball in behind. Sometimes you'd have Mbappe wide here to receive the ball on the switch, and as a result that would allow Theo Hernandez to make the run inside, and he's a powerful, powerful runner on and off the ball, Theo, once he's in full stride. Didn't really see it enough. They didn't really have the space to attack down that side as Belgium got deep and got compact early. And there was a couple of reasons it broke down, none of which I thought were tactical and a lot of which I thought were personnel. I thought Mbappe and Griezmann in the half spaces were really poor, really struggled to influence the game in any real sense. I didn't feel like they pulled away into the space enough to try and look for the ball and progress it. Griezmann did a few times, to be fair, but he really lacked a bit of quality. Mbappe just isn't that type of player that's going to look for the ball in between the lines and affect it from a central area. It was a few times Koundé got down on the right, and there was only one time I remember him actually hitting Thuram with his crosses, and that's not to say I think Koundé's crossing was bad, but it's because Thuram, Griezmann and Mbappe didn't find themselves in goal-scoring opportunities when this got into this area. And there was a real lack of presence in the box, which there has been for France all tournament, and as a result it ended up being recycled to the edge of the box where Tchouaméni was getting shots off for fun. He had about 4 or 5 long shots that didn't hit the target, but that was the real only way they could attack, because it just felt like a real lack of presence in that final third, as I was just saying. But that's the French attacking shape. What about Belgium? So where I thought Tedesco's setup was really strange was in their attacking shape. So where they've had success in games in the group stage was getting De Bruyne in between the lines to receive it on the half turn in between defence and midfield lines of the opposition and play it forward to the wide areas, whether that's Doku or Lukebakio did a really good job on the right hand side against Romania, and that's his game, finding it in between the lines, looking for the runs, and of Lukaku as well that he did in the second game. So that's where they've had success. So what did he decide to do? Push him deeper against a team that doesn't press. You're not exactly using press-resistant qualities in the deeper area to beat a high physical press, because France don't do that. What France did was drop off into this area where I feel like Tchouaméni's role became a bit different on the fly for him. I'm pretty sure he came into this game, for reasons I'll explain later, to man-mark Kevin De Bruyne in between the lines and allow the rest of the midfield to push up and almost screen the passes into that front area and play in a more zonal fashion. As a result, Tchouaméni was allowed to shield this entire front three, which they left quite isolated from the rest of the team, did Belgium. They couldn't go to those players from central areas because of the freedom Tchouaméni had to read it. And France were fine with this back five having it in this area as Tieté came in to form a left centre-back, Wout Faes is the right centre-back, Vertonghen in the centre with Onana and De Bruyne in front of him. Castagna and Doku randomly playing wing-backs in this scenario. Why Doku was playing in that position, left wing-back, I don't know. Again, it was a strange setup. He was really isolated in that position. Openda and Lukaku were attacking the centre-back pairing and trying to get him behind. He wasn't offering it short into the half space. So when Doku did get those long switches of play, he had no support of anyone in this area because there was just no one there to give him that. So Openda would look to stretch the back line, as I just said, so that dragged support even further away, so he would end up having to go back. And because of the lack of Kevin De Bruyne in those more advanced areas, France could recover quickly, and as a result, he's being marked by about 2, 3, 4 players at that point, and we really couldn't affect the game like we know that Doku can, because he was just allowed to be so isolated and so distant from the rest of the team. But as I was saying, France were fine with this back five having it in this area. The moments they tried to move up and try and progress and find it in between the lines, maybe they'd stagger De Bruyne and Onana, they'd be caught in between the three in each side, so Thuram as the central pivot, Mbappe and Rabiot supporting on the left, Kanté and Griezmann on the right. And as a result, they'd squeeze them up in this area really quickly to force them back into the back three. And really good work zonally from that attacking area of the pitch. And they even had ways to deal with it if it went to the wing back. So let's just say if they quickly tried to find it to Doku in this position, let's say if he dropped deep, Koundé would follow him. You'd have Tchouaméni that would then come across and screen it from that area, and they'd have to be forced back. Doku couldn't really affect it from this area. Koundé could drop back into position, and then if they tried to attack down the right hand side, they'd get it to Castagna, where Rabiot or Kanté, if he found himself on that side, would shuffle across to try and prevent that from becoming an issue. Carrasco would drop in a little bit deeper in this area to look for the wide overloads and the wide combinations to play through France. Teo Hernandez did a good job of then pressing up onto him, and it left Lukaku and Openda in these situations where they were just consistently trying to attack that back line. But Koundé could drop in on this right hand side to form a back three, so they were losing the numbers game, and then you'd have Tchouaméni screening any direct passes into him. Lukaku didn't really get the ball to feet at once in the first half, and the moment he did in the second half, he was absolutely bullied by Saliba. Saliba, in his one-on-one battle with him, demolished him physically and mentally. A really good centre-back performance from Saliba, just fantastic, and the whole defensive display was perfect. And again, so deep from Onana and De Bruyne in these areas, so if they couldn't penetrate, they couldn't even try and find like a maybe sideways option for one of them gambling into this space here. It was constant back to the back three and recycle it again. And also, I found it weird that De Bruyne was on this side of the midfield deeper too, and not on the right hand side, which he did move to a bit in the second half, because at least if he was on the right hand side and France did maybe squeeze over to this side of the pitch, he could have found those long switches to Doku and given him more of a chance to get further up the pitch and attack Koundé in a deeper area one-on-one. As a result, the fact he was on this side meant that they could squeeze over to this side of the pitch. Doku had less space, and there was no real combination between the two City players. France came into this prepared in the defensive sense, but the Belgium shape made it so much easier. And Tchouaméni just filling in this space, as I said, can't speak highly enough about the job he did. He was fantastic. And the only time he had to perform a bit extra was in the second half when Mangala came on for a Pender, and they went back to their regular shape that they've shown throughout the tournament, and De Bruyne then started moving into space in between the defence and midfield line. But by that point, Tchouaméni was man-marking him, and Belgium couldn't really get going, and as a result couldn't find any real attacking quality to go and win the game. We'll talk about the goal now that we've spoken about both teams' attacking and defensive shape. So as you can see here, Belgium forced back into a 4-4-2. There's two players that I'm going to point out in this situation, and it's Doku and Théâté. Théâté is so narrow, he's pulled into Kolo Muani, who's playing in the centre of the pitch when I don't think he needs to be. He should be eyeing out Koundé, who's making an overlapping run on the right-hand side. Doku doesn't know whether to track him, he doesn't know whether to drop in on Kanté, and he's outnumbered between two players. Then as Koundé moves into a more attacking situation, Théâté then reacts to try and get close to him. As you can see, Doku's in a bit of no man's land. Théâté reacts, he goes up to Koundé, Vertonghen doesn't shuffle across. Doku and Mangala look like they go to drop deep to try and prevent that space from opening up into Kolo Muani, and then get distracted because Kanté is now sitting free on the edge of the box. And this is the importance of communication and organisation from top quality professionals, from top leaders in the team. Mangala and Doku, as you can see by their body positions, both panic to react to Kanté. One of them needs to stay there and cover that half space, because Vertonghen doesn't feel like he can get close enough. There's no communication from him and Amadou Onana either to maybe one of them to sit in the centre and the other one going to press out to Kolo Muani. As a result, Doku and Mangala both panic and make that movement. Kolo Muani's in that space now between Théâté and Vertonghen, and there's a clear passing lane that opens up between them because of the panicked run towards Doku and Mangala not covering any real space, and as a result, Kolo Muani picks it up in that position. Vertonghen doesn't engage quick enough. Kolo Muani could easily get a shot away, and it deflected in off Vertonghen, own goal, and it gave France their 1-0 lead. So it was a bit of a poor one to concede, and it just capped off a really poor showing for Belgium in this game. But if I was to criticise anyone in this, it would be Domenico Tedesco. I just feel like he really overcomplicated it with his tactics coming into the game. There were so many unnecessary changes that really didn't benefit what Belgium were trying to get out of this game. But France did their job. They defended excellently, and they had a very good level of luck, which they've had a little bit in the tournament so far, but when you're this good, you sometimes earn your luck. That's my personal opinion. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Cheers for watching, lads. In a bit.